Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. If you are a first-time caller, I strongly suggest after listening to this call, you go to our call of October 5th, because that is a full call that will discuss in detail the turnkey program we've put in place to assist Dinarians both pre- and post-RV. I am going to be touching on some of that in this call, but the definitive explanation will be found on, again, the call of October 5th. So we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about the situation in Iraq. First, today is October 19th. By way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, what Dinarians are most interested in is the window for the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. First, let me say two things. First, the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, in our opinion, is absolutely a when and not if question. And second, despite all of the chaos that continues in Iraq, we are still lurching in the right direction. I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail right now. I'm going to touch on two general areas. First, the political situation in Iraq, and second, the economic situation, and we're going to look at this from more of a macroeconomic point of view. But let's go ahead and start with the political situation. Well, the parliament has recently elected Abdul Latif Rashid as the new president of the Republic. He's a British educated Kurd. This is kind of revealing for a couple of reasons. First, inasmuch as he's been British educated, he does understand the parliamentary system better than a lot of individuals that are actually serving in the parliament in Iraq. And second, because he was educated in the West, he's got less of a sectarian and tribal bent in his governance. At least that's what it appears to be the case. So while he is not the individual that I personally was hoping that we would bring in, I have mentioned in the past that they are going to bring in my opinion, they're going to have to bring in more of the moderate Shia, and here in this case Kurd candidates, and that's what they've done. Now, the new president, Rashid, has already nominated Mohammed Shia al-Sudani as the prime minister designate to be voted, I believe, this Saturday. Again, they've nominated someone that is a moderate Shia. However, there is an issue that I want to discuss about him, and I will be getting into that. Now, the speakership is a little bit more complicated. The Salim al-Habousi was the Speaker of the House. He did resign in late September in protest for the intransigence in Parliament, but it is expected that he will win re-election hopefully as early as Saturday. So what this means is Kazemi will be replaced with al-Sudani, who again is a moderate Shia. Salim, who was the president of the Republic, will be replaced with Rashid, who is a British-educated Kurd and more of a moderate. And it looks like the Speaker of the House, al-Habousi, will ultimately remain Speaker of the House. And remember, he resigned because of the failure of the Parliament to proceed. They have proceeded, so hopefully he will accept his nomination and election as Speaker of the House. Now, I mentioned there is a potential problem, and it's this. Al-Sudani, the Prime Minister designate, was at one time the Minister of Human Rights and appointed at the time by Nouri el-Maliki. Right, that name comes up again. He just won't go away. Now, the rumor is that Maliki, as part of some backroom deal, will be appointed as Vice President of the Republic, and by doing so, this provides him immunity from prosecution with regard to the white paper reforms and some of the other issues that Kazemi had reinstituted. But in my opinion, Maliki will not be satisfied with that. I think he's going to start angling to be the prime minister. So we will see how that plays out. The only good thing about the reemergence of Maliki, and I'm hard-pressed to find one, but the only good thing, assuming that he was telling the truth with regard to this one point, is that he's been on record on a number of occasions stating that he wanted the dinar to be reinstituted and floated at a slight premium above the U.S. dollar. So, again, if he was sincere about that, then that's the only good thing about his name reappearing in the discussion. But I needed to bring that up because those that have been involved with the dinar for some time know very well what the problem this guy has been for decades, literally. Now, the other issue I wanted to discuss, of course, was the economic situation in Iraq. So I wanted to take a little brief overview of that and see how that would factor into the reinstitution of the dinar in country. At present, the government of Iraq has approximately 90 billion USD in reserve currency. Now, that's the largest amount that they've had. Globally, at least, the U.S. dollar is still strong against other currencies, but in my opinion, that's probably going to be short-lived. And even if the dollar remains strong, they can't really utilize it to the extent that one would think. It's about 60 billion U.S. dollars would take to run their government for a year. And then you factor in all of the trade and banking agreements that they're entering into, the cost of international contracts to rebuild their infrastructure, their electrical grid, water, and roads. That $60 billion could be wiped out pretty quickly. So the $60 billion should be used clearly as a reserve, and they want to utilize or should want to utilize their dinar. Of course, the dinar still is in a program rate. But the price of oil is still very high today. I believe Brent crude's about $85 a barrel, so they're still making a substantial amount of revenue from the sale of oil. The other issue is that Kazemi had negotiated with a number of countries, both trade and banking agreements, and there's no way that these other nations would be entering into these agreements without the understanding that the dinar would be coming out of a program rate. So that's another thing that points to the reinstitution of the dinar happening despite all of the chaos in Iraq. Another minor issue is that Iraq will be attending the Saudi-sponsored investment conference in Davos. And again, the reason they would be there is because now they're open for business in terms of world trade. Interestingly enough, the United States has not been invited to that investment conference in Davos. Biden has really managed to screw things up. I mean, the guy is a cluster foxtrot. As a candidate, he said that he was going to make Saudi Arabia the pariah of the world. He also bragged repeatedly about destroying the quote-unquote fossil fuel industry. So it's no surprise that when he went to the Saudis in desperation, asking them to increase the price of a barrel of oil, or at least not reduce their supply of oil until after our midterms, they immediately responded by reducing production, doing so immediately, and making it public knowledge that Biden asked them to wait till after the midterm elections. Now, the United States has not been invited to their conference in Davos, so it's just not working well for the United States because we just have incompetent people, at the helm. One other important thing is that the IMF and the World Trade Organization are both publicly urging Iraq to reinstitute their currency for a couple of reasons. One, they're interested in implementing all of these trade agreements and banking agreements globally. They're also interested in the contracts to rebuild their infrastructure. But the other issue is that when the dinar, as well as some of these other currencies, reinstitute and revalue globally, they will be depegged from the U.S. dollar and will be pegged to the IMF basket of currencies. And this is something that they want as well. So what we're seeing really globally is the United States is losing a lot of its influence. The petrodollar is probably going to be on life support once these new currencies go to the IMF basket of currencies. We also have the BRICS nations, as an example, moving away from the Western central bank system, and they're using their own currencies to exchange as reserve currencies. So that's the situation in Iraq. I'll sum it up by saying, despite all of the chaos and confusion, things are moving in the right direction. Now, as I said before, for our newer callers, you can go to our call of October 5th to get a detailed explanation of the turnkey program we put in place. But I want to very briefly just touch on and summarize the trust package that we've established for you. I want to look at it from the perspective of a dinarian and from the perspective of an American citizen. First, by establishing our trust package, everything within that trust package will be sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Now, this is important if you're a dinarian, because by assigning your currencies to the trust, exchanging them within the trust, that means that the general public will have no knowledge of your newfound wealth. So this protects your privacy, this protects you from civil suit, and it's frankly no one else's business. But as an American citizen, by establishing this trust package and placing your assets within the trust package, once again, you will be preserving your privacy and your anonymity. Second, by establishing this trust package, you're going to be avoiding IRS scrutiny. Certainly when these currencies revalue, if you hold them in direct title, you're looking at an IRS audit. But if the currencies have been assigned and transferred to the trust, then the revaluation would occur within the trust, meaning that if there is any audit, they would audit the trust and not you personally. In addition, since the only taxable event within the trust will have been the revaluation itself, the IRS won't be able to do a 6-year audit, which they could do if the currency is revalued in your direct title. And whether you're a dinarian or not, as an American citizen, by placing assets in trust and by seeing that the taxable profits are ascribed to the trust and not to you personally, the IRS is loath to audit individuals that they know have sophisticated entities like these trusts, and they assume that you have qualified legal representation. The IRS, rather than auditing you, could spend that same amount of time auditing a half a dozen other individuals that don't have those protections. So that's something else that the trust does. For those of you that are dinarians, you can gift currencies through this trust, pre-RV currencies, meaning you'll be able to control the post-RV proceeds if you wish. And the same holds true as an American citizen. You can gift things to individuals through the trust, meaning that they can enjoy the gift, but you still retain control of that gift. The other issue, of course, is if your assets are in this trust, whether you're a dinarian or not, your estate will eventually bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. Now, the federal estate tax is a tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, that estate could be taxed as high as 65%, whereas in the trust, the tax would be zero, and that's huge. Lastly, we've created a package of trusts because as you acquire assets, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust. This would be the case whether you're a Dinarian or not. What this means is if any asset of yours, a rental property, a car, a boat, if anything were to get involved in civil litigation, it would only be that asset that would be involved. Your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts, which under the law are separate legal entities or persons. So this trust product works beautifully for individuals that have dinar and other currencies. It works beautifully for individuals that have assets that they think are going to appreciate substantially, but it also works beautifully for individuals that simply wish to ensure that their Fourth Amendment constitutional rights are preserved. And at this point, I'm going to read the Fourth Amendment to you, and I'm going to discuss one other very important issue that we're all facing as American citizens. First, the Fourth Amendment, quote, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." Now, the Fourth Amendment protects the American citizen basically from being harassed by the government absent probable cause supported by an affidavit. But you layer on top of that the protections of the trust. It makes it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the government to harass and harangue you. Now, the government's aware of this, and so they have a plan. And I will refer you or suggest that you Google something called the Hamilton Project. Again, the Hamilton Project, named after Alexander Hamilton, who was the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. And that right there is an insult, because I'm going to explain basically what the Hamilton Project is. But placing your assets in trust provides the best way for you to not only protect your wealth, but operate outside the Federal Reserve System. The Hamilton Project has a long-term objective of not only creating a central bank digital currency, but also creating a digital ID. Now, by doing so, that means they know everything there is to know about you. They know every purchase you made, right down to a pair of shoes. How this is not a grotesque violation of the Fourth Amendment is beyond me. But we've already seen this government attempt on numerous occasions to do things that have been ruled unconstitutional. I'll go off track here just for a moment. The Supreme Court recently ruled that there is no absolute constitutional right to, quote-unquote, an abortion, and that, therefore, the determination falls to the states. Of course, the seated government right now, I'm talking about the Biden administration, of course, was apoplectic over that. The left is apoplectic over that. But it's very straightforward. What the Supreme Court ruled is that the quote-unquote right to an abortion is not a constitutional right. And as a matter of fact, Roe v. Wade referred to the right of an abortion as an emanation of the penumbra of the right to privacy, meaning it proceeds from the legal umbrella of the right to privacy, i.e. it was made up. So the Supreme Court rightly said, we're not saying it's illegal, we're saying it's not an absolute constitutional right pursuant to the Fourth Amendment, therefore it falls to the states to make their own determinations, which basically means it goes to the people to democratically vote on a state-by-state basis. Well, a digital ID has got to be an unconstitutional effort. And those that are attempting to create not only the central bank digital currency and a digital ID are basically thumbing their nose at the Fourth Amendment. But by creating a trust and placing your assets in this trust, it makes it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for them to proceed. Now, how can you operate within a trust to avoid the Federal Reserve System's digital currency and digital ID? Well, you can do it by owning metals, cryptos, real estate investment trusts, direct real estate, foreign currencies, clone mutual funds, things of that nature. There are a lot of things that you can own which make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for them to affect a complete surveillance of what you possess, your spending habits, right down, as I said, to the purchase of a pair of shoes. This is as un-American as it gets. But again, we do have our Fourth Amendment rights, and the best way to preserve and utilize that is through the creation of a self-settled family asset protection trust package. And if you are in the possession of currencies or any asset that you're anticipating a substantial increase in wealth, you want to get that in trust prior to that appreciation in order to hide from the general public this newfound wealth. So again, I strongly suggest that if the things that we've discussed here today and in our call on October 5th are important to you, and certainly if you're a Dinarian, I suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about these currencies, the revaluation, about the things that you're going to be dealing with after you've acquired this wealth. You could go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. You can request our initial no-obligation package either by phone or email. This package does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed by establishing your family trust package, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. There will be no consultation fee. You can contact us by email, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, or you can contact us by phone. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. Again, we will get your no-obligation trust package out to you immediately. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed. Review the information. Contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. But with the advent of the central bank digital currency and the digital ID, as an American citizen, the single best thing you can do is to protect and lock up your assets in a trust that would require, whether it's a civil suit, criminal investigation, IRS audit, require they go to a court and show probable cause why they should have access to the information within your trust package. And we will be available to assist you in every way, from sending our initial package to answering any questions you have to helping you walk through the creation of the trust, and then all of the other product services and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So thanks so much for listening. We will be back next Wednesday. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature were to happen, we'll get out an emergency email and try to schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.